Ray Connellan, are you as bored as we are at the moment as an athlete? Has it been a difficult couple of weeks now?
Yeah, definitely starting to get a little bit kind of itchy feet sitting in the house now a lot. But for me, I've been out playing a bit of golf and kind of trying to get myself out of the house as much as I can. At this point, kind of for training, there's not really much you can do. You can't meet up as a team. You can't really get together with the boys at all. So you just have to keep tipping away yourself, which is never fun. Definitely makes the runs a lot harder when you're just out there slogging by yourself. But yeah, it's definitely getting a lot tougher to maintain the kind of the motivation to keep going when you're not really sure what you're training for or when your next game might be. So
Yeah, like it must have been fairly frustrating as well because 2 rounds of the league to go. You're 2 points away from the promotion spots in Division 2, 1 point above relegation, probably the most competitive division in the league. You were set to play Lynch last weekend, which was going to be crucial for both counties. That would have set everything up for the last weekend. And now just everything is in limbo for God knows how long.
yeah, so that's exactly it. We were getting all set for a big game against Lynch, a kind of more local rivalry there where we knew we had to win. It's the most important game of the year, so we're really getting ourselves psyched up for it. And then the night before, 2 nights before, the pin gets pulled on everything, and you're kind of just left in limbo, as you said. So yeah, it's a little bit weird. It's a strange feeling. Obviously, it's something that none of us have ever experienced before. So everyone's kind of playing it as we go and see what happens as kind of events unfold. But for the minute, it's just have lads tip away and keep themselves fit, and whenever the time comes that we can take the field again, we will.
Obviously, public health is the most important thing here, but as a player, do you start to worry about the league maybe even been scrapped when you see early May games now being called, like the New York Galway game is now off? That kind of indicates to me the GA are accepting there's going to be no games in April or probably even early May.
Yeah, I think public health is kind of the most important thing. There's bigger things in football. You need to look at kind of the reality of it, that you can't be prioritising the league campaign over the general health of players and families. So when you look at it that way, it makes it a bit more understanding. But then at the same time, there is the footballer in you who's mad to go out and play and wants to do as well as they can in the league. And especially for us, because we've had some decent performances and we let ourselves down against Roscommon, and we really wanted to come out and have a strong performance against Lynch to kind of solidify our league campaign. But it wasn't to be. The virus is coming. We're all stuck inside now instead.
And look, I suppose Division 2 and Division 3 are particularly important this year, Ray, as well, because the Talton Cup, it may never happen now, but it is hanging over the teams who could potentially end up in Division 3 at the end of this league as well. Given that you've got Dublin early doors in the Leinster Championship as well, I assume very important from your point of view to stay up if you can.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I suppose when you have Dublin, it's always going to be a challenging first fixture to have in the championship campaign. I don't care what team you are, so that was never ideal. But yeah, it was. We really did want to have a strong league so we could set ourselves up well for the rest of the year. But I suppose we just don't know what the story is now. We don't know when we're going to be back. We don't know when championship games are going to be played. If anything happens, so like it really is just a wait and see. Like everyone's kind of as clueless as the next man about how this is all going to work out.
Yeah, I suppose, how do you keep yourself occupied? You said obviously you're playing a bit of golf indoors. What are you doing at the moment to stay sane?
Well, I'm obviously back in college up in Dublin, so I'm tipping away at that now. It's a little bit more difficult to stay on top of things when you're kind of like going through lectures and stuff all online. So, yeah, just trying to keep on top of college coursework. Figuring out what's going to happen with exams now is the next thing. We'll have to see there. As far as that, then, just to keep myself entertained, I mean, we've got, I suppose, online game and stuff like that, where a few of the lads are kind of all getting like the headsets in, and it's gas. Like it feels like you're back when you're like kind of 13 or 14 again. Like you're inside, like you're go outside and kick a ball or something off a wall just to get out of the house for a while. So it is a bit strange. It feels like we've kind of gone back in time a little bit.
Before all this COVID-19 stuff kicked in over the last couple of weeks, yourself and your brother John were doing a bit of fundraising as well. Why were you going into the sea each day?
So this is a campaign that was launched. It's called Freesbury, and it was basically it was a challenge to promote the talk around mental health and to kind of just get rid of the stigma around mental health, and alongside it to try and raise money for PA House. Damien Brown, who would have been the man who rowed across the Atlantic only a few years ago, ex-professional rugby player. I think he kind of started the whole thing last year, the year before, and this year then I said I'd get on board with it and try it. And my brother John then, I kind of roped him in with me. So what we did was every day for February we got into open water up to your chest, which was either here in Athlone and Coulson Point, or for me in Sea Point in Dublin. And the amount of time you spent in the water coincided with the date of February. So 1 minute on the 1st, 2 minutes on the 2nd, all the way up to the 29th for the lovely leap year that we had this year, which was great.
I was just thinking, I'm sure you were delighted it was a leap year to start with.
I think I was 4 days in until someone told me, and I hadn't even thought of it. You're like, it's a leap year, and you've got basically an extra half an hour in the water. So it was good, and the weather was fairly poor, and that made the whole thing a lot more difficult. Which, to be honest, I think people appreciated more what we were actually doing, because I know the last day in particular, I think it was 2 degrees with a wind chill and snow, and I was standing up to my neck in freezing cold water. And I think at the last day we raised 2,500 alone. So I think people really did appreciate, look, this isn't fun, like, so let's kind of get behind the two boys. And I think altogether nearly 37,000 was raised. So yeah. It's remarkable. So no, we were very happy with how it all worked out.
And in terms of mental health as well, for the Armagh game a few weeks ago, Westmeath gave up the sponsorship. Well, I suppose we should say O'Brien's gave up the sponsorship, the Renault garage in Mullingar, to allow you to raise a bit of mental health awareness as well. That seems to have kind of got the conversation going a bit around the county.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was actually coincidental that myself and John were doing this thing, and that happened at the same time. It kind of worked out quite well. But I suppose the GAA is a very important role. There's so many youngsters that are active and a part of the GAA and young men in particular, that it's almost like the characters that play GAA are the last people who would openly speak about their struggles. They're the lads who are out playing football, like, they'd be too cool to say that they're upset, that type of attitude. So I think for the GAA, it's just so important that we start to show that as players and as county footballers, there's youngsters that look up to us, that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to talk. It's okay that if you're having a tough time, that you might need someone to rely on or to go speak to someone. So I thought it was absolutely brilliant the way the two teams got behind it, and we wore the t-shirts for the warm-up supporting Good to Talk and Pieta House. So yeah, I just think it's great that the GAA is using its kind of leverage over youngsters to kind of be like, look, this happens to people. No one is okay all the time. It's fine. Just make sure that you can talk to people and don't ever kind of be suffering alone with it.
You were going for dips with John, obviously, during the fundraising as well. Do you miss having him around the Westmeath panel? I know he's only recently got married and probably the mind is elsewhere, but I just saw the DVD recently of the Meath game, and yourself and John were there with your family afterwards, just lovely scenes and stuff. Do you miss having him around?
Yeah, definitely in the Westmeath panel you would. I suppose I'm kind of only gone back in this year now after 3 or 4 years, so I'm kind of just getting used to all the boys again. It is nice to be back with all the lads, but yeah, I know I do wish that we got another few years playing Westmeath together. 2014 and 2015, or was it 2014 and 2015 were the 2 years we played, and I really enjoyed that. And I suppose we still have photos up on the wall here of that Meath win, and all of us kind of going mad hugging and whatever. So yeah, I definitely love if we got another couple of years together. But it's really lit a fire in me now just to stay fit for the club, and for him too to stay fit, just to try and get a few games and a few years together with Athlone.
In terms of Westmeath, you took your time, I guess, coming back into it. Jack was very insistent that you'd go play some college ball, get everything sorted out from that point of view. Did you kind of just need that period after you got back from Australia just to settle back in?
Yeah, definitely. I think just in general, I'd come home, and once I decided to move from Australia, I went to America for the summer. And that was just a real case of like, look, let's have a blowout, let's switch off for a couple of months. Standard of football is still decent, so you can enjoy that and you'll stay reasonably fit. But then coming back into Ireland, like, I know how intense inter-county football is, the commitment, the travel commitments going up and down from Dublin to Athlone or Mullingar. And I know if I went straight back in from whatever, October, November, whenever it was, that my head would have been fried come February. And I wasn't ready for that level of commitment to sport. And I said that to Jack. I was like, look, this is just where my head's at the minute. I really want to just get back into enjoying football, and Sigerson is that perfect kind of. It bridges that gap perfectly between kind of the serious intercounty football and then that mateship that you get with your club. So for me, that was just, it was so important that I got that in, and yeah, it was ideal. It really just, it eased me back into the transition from AFL back into Gaelic football again.
Good to have that kind of understanding from the manager as well, because some intercounty managers might have said, look, Ray, if you're not committed 100% to pre-season and not here for the slog in November and December, I don't want to see you for the rest of the year. That's quite an understanding trait in Jack there.
Yeah, well, I think anyone who speaks to Jack, you can have a 5-minute phone call with Jack and you'll see that that's the type of character he is. You know, he's one of the nicest gentlemen I've ever come across in sport. He's so understanding. He very good player manager. He understands that, you know, like different players have all different things going on with them. Like no two players are the same. So he's very good at just understanding that, and extremely reasonable with me in that sense. And I just told him once I come back in, I'm back in 100%, and he was more than happy to accommodate that.
How close were you to playing alongside Dermot Connolly last summer? I guess a visa form going wrong cost you a chance to play alongside him?
Yeah, I suppose a 5-hour flight was as close as we got. I'm not actually, none of us really know the ins and outs exactly of what happened. We just know he didn't get over. I was staying in the house that he was supposed to move into, and we were told that there were 2 boys arriving in, himself and his clubmate Shane Carthy. And I walked upstairs and opened the door, and Shane was sitting there. I've never met before, and went up, shook his hand, introduced himself. And then didn't really say anything, but there was quite clearly only one suitcase there, so I didn't. Kind of like, right, someone's missing, like. So then the elephant in the room, we were like, here, what's the crack? Where's your pal? So yeah, there was no Dermot, so unfortunately now, but I would have loved to play a summer with him. He's probably one of the best footballers of our generation, like, so it would have been amazing to spend a summer there and play with him. But sure, look, these things happen, unfortunately.
Look, it didn't work out too bad for him. For you, I guess, you know, speaking of Dublin, you probably didn't want your last game for Westmeath to be the injury and getting carted off at Croke Park. I assume you were dying to get another chance to play for Westmeath come what may at the end of your time in Australia.
Yeah, it wasn't the ideal situation. I suppose I was going over to Australia hoping for a bit longer career, but then once that came home, once that finished up and I was coming home, I kind of knew I was like, right, it's back into Westmeath now once I'm ready. So yeah, once I knew it was finished, I was just mad to get back into playing football then and kind of ease my way back into it. So playing the first game, I was a bit nervous going out the first day against Clare, because I think a lot of people, you know, you've been the professional athlete, you're the fella who's in Australia, and there's very high expectations, fair or unfair, because you've been over there playing a completely different sport. So you do come back and you're very rusty at the start. You're slicing balls and not striking it the way you used to, and your fitness levels are a little bit different. They don't really suit the game, and then so it just takes that little bit of an adjustment. So against Clare, I was a little bit nervous kind of going out. I was like, right, we'll just take it easy here, but everything went well, and I was pretty happy with how the performance went.
You must be happy enough with how Westmeath did in your absence as well. You know, they've come up now in a pretty short amount of time from Division 4 back up to Division 2. Fingers crossed from your perspective, you're staying in Division 2 for the next year as well. It's been a nice kind of move up the ladder while you were away.
Yeah, well, when I started playing county football, every year I played senior, we got relegated. So I went from Division 1 to Division 4 in 4 years, and then as soon as I left, the boys started winning O'Byrne Cups and climbing back up to division. So touch wood, I'm not the jinx. But yeah, no, the lads worked so hard for the last few years, and even as I come in now, like, you hear the talk of a few of the mentors just saying, like, look, this is something we've been building on now, lads, for the last 18, 24 months. So you just know, like, that even for me coming in, it's just great knowing the boys have that base of work kind of behind them, and that they've started to build confidence in their own ability too, because you've seen it now. I think we've kind of let ourselves down in periods of games, and it's cost us a result, which is unfortunate. But our performances throughout games have generally been quite good. I'd say bar the Roscommon game where we were quite poor, every other game we performed quite strongly for the majority, but then let ourselves down in bad 10 or 15 minute periods. So I think lads are over the last couple of years getting that confidence in that, we're a good side here and we can mix it with some of the better teams in the division.
You've been good quality to watch. That's kind of come alongside the wacky finishes to games. I remember the Cavan game. I was up at the rugby. I checked the score before I went into the press conference. You guys are well ahead. I'm thinking that's 2 points on the board. I come back out. I think you've lost by 6. The Armagh game, that went every which way during the game as well. It's probably not good for the heart.
No, certainly not. I would much rather be winning from the start and just hold on. But yeah, no, I suppose the Cavan game came out of the blocks, performed pretty strongly first half. We were in a very strong position, and then 10 minutes into the second half, we had our lead dwindled down to 2 points. I think we went 5 points up then. Luke Loughlin came on and scored a goal. So again, we kind of had won that. It felt like we'd won that game twice. But then it's just like you can't rest on these things in Division 2. Like teams are just too strong to come back and get at you again if you fall asleep. So I think a little bit of complacency there maybe cost us that one. Armagh, we didn't come out in the first 10 minutes. They rattled off 1-5 or 1-6 or something stupid in 10 minutes, and we had an uphill battle from there. And like we got that game all the way back until I had a mark from only 40 metres out in front of goals, and I pulled it to the right and wide. And I'd say if you gave it to me 100 more times, I'd kick it, which is just it's the way these things go. Like, so a little bit unlucky, and definitely would have counted on myself to have kind of to top that one off. So yeah, we've had the good performances, and just I suppose there has just been periods, 10 minutes against Cavan, 10 minutes against Armagh, where we've leaked heavily in those periods, and that's probably cost us. So we kind of just need to get our good is very good, our very bad is very bad. So we just need to bring our bad games just up a little bit, and if we can stop those, I suppose if we can stop leaking as many points in our little bad periods and in matches, it'll make a huge difference to our results at the end.
You're probably a good person to ask about the advanced mark. Players seem to have a very mixed opinion about it coming into Gaelic football. You would have been training for it in the AFL and the VFL for a few years as well. What are your thoughts on the advanced mark coming into Gaelic football then?
Mixed. Sometimes it can be brilliant. When you see a guy who was a turbot for Armagh who went up and took a huge one a few weeks back, I think round 2 of the league. There's been a few huge marks where it's like, oh wow, look, you can reward that skill because it's. But then there's sometimes where it's a 20-meter kick
uncontested
to a man, uncontested, like into his chest, and you're kind of thinking, is it really worth the reward there? I would prefer if it wasn't in the game. I don't think it's necessary. I think it slows the game down. I think it actually helps defensive teams because if you take the mark, you can set up quicker. Whoever has marked it has 15 seconds to hit his shot, and in that time, defences can set up. Whereas if the ball is played in and your forward wins it, he has to be able to turn and do something or take on his man. So I think that's the biggest con. That it also takes away from, like, if you're a really small, agile, nippy corner forward and you love taking on your man and beating him, I think you should be promoting that more than just a big fella going up and plucking the ball out of the clouds. I just think it's not necessary. The forward mark, the midfield mark, I think is good. I like that because you go up and you catch a ball. There's nothing worse than 3 or 4 lads holding you up and then you get done for over carrying. So I think that's a good rule. But as far as the advanced mark, I just think it's unnecessary. It's there for the sake of it, and it hasn't really added anything to the game.
Yeah, I was chatting to Paul Mannion a few weeks ago. He was saying, look, realistically, you're a forward. You catch yourself a decent piece of clean possession anywhere near goal. In all likelihood, you want to try and beat your man anyway. Yeah.
I 100% agree. Like, I don't think there's a natural corner forward or foot forward in the country that's not going to want to drop the shoulder and take on his man. So, look, it leaves it up to the the player to decide what he wants to do. But I just think it's completely unnecessary. It adds to refereeing decisions going wrong. It adds to controversy in the game that we don't need. People are out talking about it for all the wrong reasons and talking about referees for all the wrong reasons then after. So, it's just an unnecessary kind of hindrance on a referee to try and kind of to rule over it, I suppose.
Right, like me, you were watching the action at an empty MCG this morning. Start
Yeah,
of the AFL season felt really weird. I was watching it in BT, where you had two great rivals who would usually pack the place out in Richmond and
yeah.
Carlton, and the place is empty. What did you make of the decision on St Patrick's Day for them to go ahead with this season in a very weird way? Fewer rounds, no fans in the stadium for the moment. To me, it seemed a bit surreal this morning.
Yeah, it was very strange. The When I was watching it, I was looking. Carlton were running out, and in Australia, the teams come out at one at a time. There's like I know I've been to a few Richmond games, and Richmond have one of the best fan bases in sport. They've got drums lining up the tunnel as you come out. There's the Tigers, the Tiger roar as they come out comes out over the speakers, and it's this really deafening atmosphere. And then today, it's kind of like, okay, this is weird. We're running out to a bit of music and no cheering, no clapping, no. They normally run out through like the banner and like you've got kids there holding it up and stuff, and there was none of this, and just a very kind of eerie feeling to it. It felt like it looked like a practice match. It looked like a kind of a practice sim game that you'd have kind of leading into round one. I think it's a bit weird. I'm surprised that they're going ahead with it, but then when you look at I suppose the commercial aspect of it, like the TV rights in AFL are $2.5 billion. They have a $2.5 billion contract a year. This with Fox, and it's a lot of money. Like to honour these rights too. And I spoke to a few mates from Australia there only this morning who were just saying like they all wanted to see it. The players wanted to play it, so they all just felt, look, we go ahead with it just behind closed doors. So a bit strange, but that was the decision that was made.
Any of the Irish lads you were talking to, do they have any concerns? Because, I mean, obviously revenue is going to be massively down. It's not like the Irish lads out in the league, maybe with the exception of Toohey, are probably earning big money. They're probably on the smaller contracts. But the worry, I guess, would have to be there that clubs are going to have a struggle without fans coming through the gate here.
Yeah, well, I think there is talk about pay cuts now, and that's, I think, Australia-wide. All sports are now starting to look at pay cuts, and I think there's talk of kind of 20% pay cuts for players, but I think for some players that'll obviously affect them more than others. You've got, I would find it hard if you're an international rookie and you're on your between 80 or 90 grand a year. If you're taking a 20% pay cut, the cost of living in Australia is so high that's actually it's a big cut out of your salary.
I was in Sydney not that long ago. $8 for a beer. 80, 90,
Well,
80 90 grand isn't going a long time, particularly if you live in, say, Melbourne or Sydney.
Yeah, if you're living in Sydney, there is actually an allowance for players in Sydney where they get paid an extra little bit on top of their contract because cost of living is so high. But Melbourne's similar. I mean, you can go out for breakfast in Dublin here and you can get a half decent breakfast for, I don't know, 10, 12 euro or whatever it is. But if you're going over to Oz and you want to go out for a breakfast, it's going to cost you the guts of $30. So it does add up, and you think these guys, oh look, isn't it great he's earning that money? But everything, you're earning more, you're paying more. It's kind of the way it is over there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they're going to combat the lack of attendances, because I think it's the fourth highest attended domestic game on the planet. I think nearly 40,000 is your average attendance at a game. That's an awful lot of money for clubs to be waving goodbye to.
Absolutely. If you're not going to get 40,000 into Gaelic Games matches, and obviously the GA made a decision pretty early that everything's off till March 29th, and it looks like April is entirely gone based on what some of the counties have done now as well. As a player, how would you have felt if, say, closed doors had happened? Would you have felt comfortable? Would you have felt safe playing if that had been the environment you were sent out in?
No, I think they've made the right call. I was very happy when they did call it. I've got friends, family who have underlying health conditions. I've tried as much as I can in the last couple of weeks to keep my circle as small as possible. So any of the lads that I'd normally hang out with that I haven't yet met, I think I've kind of hung out with the same kind of, outside my family, the same 2 or 3 people all the time, because I'm trying to just keep the circle as small as possible. So I wouldn't like to be out in a field where there's 30 odd other lads running around, and there's obviously a lot of body contact. You could be sharing a water bottle or something like that. I just think for the sake of the season, or for the sake of a few games, just do the right thing, call it off. So I think I was pretty happy when the decision was made. I wouldn't like to be the one to bring home this virus. It probably wouldn't affect me too badly as a young, healthy adult, but I think there's certainly people in my family and my close circle of friends that if I were to pass it on, it would certainly have very, very adverse effects on their health, and I definitely wouldn't like to to be the one that passed it on to them.
Do you start to maybe kind of accept that the championships might well be redrawn at this stage? We're probably looking at something quite radical. I'd imagine at club level as well. There were meant to be games in April in Westmeath. They're not going to happen now. I assume we're going to see radical change here.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Like they're going to have to do something. I think the biggest thing is just going to see how much time they have and when all this stuff kind of passes over. I suppose watching the Taoiseach address the other night when Varadkar mentioned that this is kind of only the beginning. So that would let you believe that there's going to be another at least month, 6 weeks of this. How much time is that going to start leaving to fit in games? And I suppose that's when you need to start managing the calendar and see, right, where do we go with this? Like, how many games can we fit in, and where do we put them? How are their pitches playable? Like, and other things like this, because you're going to have underage football, you minor, you've got your women's football, you've got male football, club, intercounty. All of this is going to be condensed into a much shorter time period. So I'm delighted I have nothing to do with putting these things together, because it's going to be a headache for whoever has to rearrange all the fixtures.
When you reflect back on your time in Australia, do you look back on it fondly? Because I remember when you left, we chatted. At that stage, you were a little bit older, maybe 2 or 3 years older than what the international rookie would usually go over at. You knew you were kind of taking a bit of a punt by going over at the age you were, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When you look back at that 3.5 years or so, how do you reflect on it now?
Yeah, I've nothing really but happy memories. I mean, it's funny, I got like reminders on my phone of photographs from St Patrick's Day 3 or 4 years ago when we were over with all the lads together, and it kind of got the group chat going, and we were all having a bit of a laugh. So, like, I mean, I've made friends there now that I'll be mates with them for life. The lifestyle I lived over there was just so enjoyable. Like, I lived in a beautiful part of Melbourne, just right beside the beach. My first year, met some great people. I got to go play sport every day. Kind of got to see the level of athlete you can become when you're training full time. Just learned an awful lot about myself, I suppose, from a sporting sense, and kind of just from a personal sense as well. I wouldn't say I really regret anything. I think I would have liked to have done one or two things a little bit differently, or I know, like, from a football point of view, I really feel that in my second year at St Kilda, if I just stayed as a defender, that things would have gone a little bit differently. I think I showed a bit more promise there. But outside of that, I just think I just loved it. Like, I just really enjoyed pretty much everything about it, like the good and the bad.
Yeah, because, like, just following your progress in terms of game time you were getting with the affiliate team and stuff, it seemed on year 2 you were quite close to making a breakthrough at St Kilda.
Yeah, well, I'd say towards the end of year 1, I was nearly closer. I was started off as a half back, playing pretty well, and then we'd no real pace in our forward line, and it was just an idea. We're like, look, Ray, throw you up there, see how you get on, and kind of just started to kick goals and play quite well. So then I had a really, really strong pre-season for my second year. I got selected for the AFLX, the inaugural AFLX tournament, which started up. So things were going well, and then first 3 or 4 games of the year just stunk the place up, and I just didn't play well. Not really sure why. I think just dipped in form. Kind of was concentrating on trying to get a game with the first, and didn't really just do what I was good at. And then once my form went, it's very hard when you're in that position just to try and, like, get yourself out of a funk. But then come the end of the year, I was flying again, and I was really thinking, right, we're going to be pushing here now. And then I suppose with about 2 months left, I kind of saw the writing on the wall as I go, I think this is going to be it. Just the conversations you have with coaches and stuff, you start to realise that you're not really in contention. So that was kind of hard playing when you kind of knew you were always kind of going up. It felt like an uphill battle a little bit at times. But I think the only regret I would have is that I remember having a conversation with Alan Richardson, who was the head coach at the time. He called me over after a training session, and he said something along the lines of, look, we're thinking of throwing you back half back. How do you feel about that? At this stage, I'd actually come off a few good games half forward, and I thought there was more of a spot on our list for a half forward than there was a half back, because none of the other half forwards had nailed down a position. It was like a merry-go-round. It was you're in 1 week, you're out the next, in 1 week, out the next. And the half back was a very solid line, you know. We had depth there as well. So I said, look, leave me as a half forward. I'll I'm going to back myself to nail down this spot. I feel maybe if I'd made the decision then to go half back, I would have showed enough promise in the few weeks to be like, we should probably take a chance on him again next year and play him as a half back. So that was probably the point where I maybe should have just kind of bit the bullet, like, oh look, go back half back. But at the end of the day, I backed myself to do my job as a small forward, as a half forward, and just it worked out the way it did. But yeah, that was kind of it. Then I was kind of let go 2 months later.
You said you probably saw it coming, but that still has to be a very difficult conversation.
Yeah. Well, it's never easy. I was having conversations with them, kind of asking, did they know what was going to happen? And they'd said they were going to be making a decision over the next couple of weeks. So I just explained, look, well, if you could give me a heads up, I don't want to find out. I don't want it to be the last game of the season and then I find out and I'm stuck over here with no football and no job and trying to sell my car, sell everything in my house. So I was like, if you can let me know, given my circumstances, that I'm moving to the other side of the world, can you just give me a heads up a bit earlier? So I arrived in the train on a Tuesday morning and just got asked to go up for a meeting upstairs. So I think the lump in the throat was there straight away. I knew what was coming. So went up and had the conversation with the head of the list management, Tony Elshaw, and the general manager of the football club and the player welfare manager, Tony Brown. And I spoke to these guys and they just said, look, there isn't going to be a spot for you on the list next year. So it was there was a big clear out now. I was one of many. I think I was one of 5 or 6 who went in that, and there was quite clearly a fairly big turnaround in the club at that stage. I think the head coach didn't last too much longer after me.
Yeah, I know the experience obviously for you is with Essendon and with St Kilda, but say you're a young lad who goes across, because there's always these kind of fear stories about, a young lad gets plucked at 17 or 18 years of age here, he's impressed in the minor championship, he's effectively like a free signing for an Australian team. Is there much support for Irish lads when you do arrive out at an AFL club then?
Yeah, there is, yeah, but it's not a support in a sense. Like it's almost not an obvious support. It's a bit more inconspicuous, where they're always asking you how things are. Like they're always kind of just catching up with you, making sure, are you okay in your house? Have you got a car sorted? Have you got an accountant? Have you got a player manager yet? Like, and they put you in touch with all these people, and so they just make sure that you're settled. And then once they see you kind of find your groove, they just check in every now and then, and like there'll be older players at the club who'll always be asking you. I mean, they'd ask you around for dinner or something, so you get to know different players. Or I know when I was in St Kilda for our first year, Nick Rewald, who is a legend of the game over there, he was still at the club at the time, and he brought us all down to his home house in Tasmania, and we spent 3 or 4 days down there, all the first year players, just to get to know one another. And it's like a bonding session. You open up about who you are, kind of family, your friends, all that type of stuff, tell stories about where you've come from. So pretty quickly you become very personal with these people and very close to these people, and then they're just very supportive after that. I mean, they're always asking about home. Especially in St Kilda have a particularly good player welfare manager, Tony Brown. He's an ex-player, and just he couldn't do enough to keep players happy and to make sure that, as far as everything outside of football, that you're all okay. And I think most clubs are pretty decent at that.
I know you spoke a bit around, when Colin McShane was heading out, and there was a lot of people in Ireland speaking out against the idea, the joint top scorer in the championship last year making a trip to Australia. Are the concerns a bit misplaced by some of the managers in terms of guys going across?
They're not misplaced, I wouldn't say. Maybe I think managers might come across wrong at times, but I mean, no one wants to see their best player leave. No one wants to see your Colin McShane's leaving. Like he's been one of the best parts about our game. So I think you just need to look beyond that kind of selfish side where you're like, oh, I really want to see him play. That kind of attitude. But like lads need to make a living. Gaelic football, as brilliant as it is, as much as we all love it, fortunately it's an amateur sport for the players. So you're not gonna get any money by your expenses. So I wasn't surprised when I heard that he stayed, and then quite recently after, there was a picture of him shaking hands, and he just got a new job.
Yeah.
I think that I wasn't really too shocked at all to see that. I think the GA can go a long way in helping players in that sense and getting them into employment. Not saying that that's what happened. I don't know what Coll's story was or why he made his decision. But
The only thing is, it's probably only in the bigger counties that's going to happen for you, though.
well, yeah, that's exactly it. Like, it's just some counties can afford to do it, and I suppose if you're a player like Colin McShane, people are going to offer to do it. I mean, he's one of the best players in the country, so of course you're going to want him to stay. But no, I wouldn't say that it's misplaced. I'd just say that you need to support lads' decisions. If whether a lad decides to stay, that's his decision. Whether a lad decides to go, it's 100% his decision. It's not. I can see the point of view of the kind of poaching argument from the AFL, but at the same time, no one's got to go into a young lad's head. He needs to look after himself and look after his future family, and I think that's the bigger picture.
The GA stance is still they won't accept a fee if it was offered by an Australian team. Connelly claims